How's it going, guys? This is the Core 3 from FightingGamesOnline.info, and I'm back with another first look. I know it's been a while, but I got a new one, and this title is called Rising Thunder. So I want to just give you, pretty going to be very detailed about this one. I'm going to cover the development of the game, the gameplay, the online experience. It's going to be pretty thorough, so hopefully I don't bore you too much with all the explanations. Alright, so let's get into it. So if you're familiar with Evolution, it's a fighting game competition that happens every year. It's just a ton of fighting games, happens usually in July. And for this Evolution, there was a trailer that was being shown every once in a while. It would get shown, and this trailer was for Rising Thunder. Now there was one thing during this trailer that particularly got my attention, and that was the GGPO 3. And of course, I know about GGPO. I've discussed this in other first looks, which is a netcode that is used, created by Tony Cannon. And Tony Cannon happens to be one of the co-founders of Evo. So of course, you know, quickly putting two and two together, I know that he has some sort of involvement in this game. So it did seem pretty mysterious. For the most part, I knew that it was going to be a free-to-play fighting game for the PC, and that it had signups for the alpha. So of course I immediately went and signed up for it because the game looked pretty interesting. I mean, you could kind of tell that it was a fundamental, you know, traditional type of fighting game. You didn't really know what to expect. There wasn't a lot of information available. I also found out that it would start officially on July 28th, the alpha. So not too long after Evo was finished, there were just, you know, a couple media outlets that were starting to talk about the game, and come to find out, the person that they were interviewing was none other than Seth Killian, and he looks to be heading the project for Rising Thunder. Now, for those who are not familiar with Seth Killian, he used to work at Capcom as a community manager, and he was also a combat advisor for Street Fighter 4. So of course you might be familiar with that game. He also was given the final character of Street Fighter was actually named after him, so that is something else, you know, to know about Mr. Seth Killian. So you also find out that it is part of Radiant Entertainment. Now, for those that don't know, Radiant Entertainment is basically Tommy and Tony Cannon's game development company. A long time ago, maybe a year or two ago, they basically kickstarted a game called Stone Earth, and Stone Earth is now available on Steam for early access. Now, before the game actually was revealed, there was some news that had come out in regards to Radiant Entertainment, and basically they received a substantial investment for creating more games. So I can only assume that this is one of the newer games that will be coming out from Radiant Entertainment. Now, in one of the interviews, Seth Killian basically explained about the development. It's an 8-man development team, and they basically spent a year on creating this game. And I have to say, for just a year, you know, they seem to have gotten pretty far along with it. Now, during these interviews, Seth basically explained what he wanted the game to be, you know, what his major goal was for making this fighting game. And one of the things, of course, he wants, I guess, you know, more than anything else, is to make this game more accessible for everyone to play. He feels like simplifying inputs more will basically be able to give more people time to play. He talked about the disappointment of people giving up on fighting games a lot earlier than they should, you know, because, you know, of course, if you really stick to it, you'll find that there's a lot more to fighting games to enjoy. Another thing that I think he was hoping for also was that he wants the game to be as popular as the mobile titles, such as Dota and League of Legends. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons he was explaining for using the free-to-play model, is that he wants people to have access to this game as much as possible. If you're familiar with competitive gaming and you're familiar with esports, you should know that like Dota and League of Legends are basically the biggest games right now in that competitive field. I mean, they see, you know, millions and millions of dollars in prize earnings. You know, there's a lot of leagues for them. You know, it's a very big deal. Fighting games have not really gotten to that plateau as yet. And so I'm thinking that's one of his main goals, you know, right now, is to kind of get Rising Thunder to that level. He also mentioned the importance of this not being a pay-to-win model. Of course, this premiums will be solely cosmetic, so you won't have to worry about, you know, anything affecting the gameplay. All this stuff, all the pay models are going to be probably for the actual aesthetics of the game. And if you've looked at it, you know, you see the robots, they're pretty plain, and we're going to talk about that just a little bit more. I'm just wanting to kind of just put that out there for right now. Another big talking point, I think, for Seth was saying that basically with this game is basically going to be focused on just online play. This is not an offline game at all. This is strictly online. If you looked at the trailer, you know, as you know, of course, like I said, there's Tony and Tommy Cannon's involvement in this. And of course, Tony Cannon, the creator of GGPO, will be doing the netcode for this. And you already know about rollback technology. It's basically one of the more preferred netcodes for online play when it comes to fighting games. A lot of the community, you know, nothing but positive things to say about this netcode. You know, once again, I go back to the trailer, which basically had, you know, the first thing that it pointed out to me was GGPO 3, which would basically be a new type of netcode that he's creating. And what also I saw there was that it was basically being built from the ground up. So this is going to be very important, and I'm going to explain a little bit why this is really important. You know, why they're just strictly making it online as I get into the gameplay, okay? So I'm just going to talk about the overall look of the game. First saw it, you know, I wasn't really that intrigued by the look. I mean, I thought that it had that next gen feel to me, but, you know, overall, you know, robots aren't really my favorite type of characters, just to be honest with you. But anyway it goes, it's going to be robots, and basically Seth has explained that each robot has a pilot. Some may have noticed that the voices didn't really seem to match the body type of some of these robots, and that's because, of course, they have different types of pilots. There's only been one background so far, so nothing really there. I mean, it's a pretty good looking background. I kind of like it, very detailed. They're also doing something very interesting when it comes to certain aspects of gameplay as far as the visuals go. You'll notice that in some cases the robot's color changes, and of course, to somebody who hasn't really played fighting games, you might not really understand what's going on. But for somebody who's played for a long time, after a while you play, you actually realize what these colors stand for. You know, if you check the game out, you'll notice that sometimes the character looks orange, and orange kind of stands for invincibility. And then, of course, there's some other cases where the robot looks blue, and that, of course, stands for armor. So I think that's a pretty good way of helping people kind of realize what's going on in the game. It should make it really easy for people to catch on as they start to play. I think they're pretty focused on right now just the gameplay for the most part, but they have made a few little changes here and there to the actual look of the game. And I guess the biggest thing was that one of the bars was changed. There's a mechanic called overdrive, and basically it was at first located on the life bar, but now they've kind of put it below the life bar with another mechanic that I'm about to get into just a second. Okay, so that's just kind of basically the overall game look, and I just wanted to talk about that for just a quick minute. So let's talk about the gameplay, because I mean that's pretty much the biggest, you know, the most important thing. Basically, the button inputs, you have basically 3 attack buttons, and then you have 3 special buttons. So as far as the 3 attack buttons, some of them are command normals. You have one that's a universal command for cross-ups, and that's basically pretty much it as far as the button inputs go. Then you basically have the 3 special buttons, right, which kind of gives you like the weak, the medium, and the strong attack. Now, where things get interesting with the special moves is that you have these different variations for each character, and at the moment they're just basically being updated as the game progresses. You know, a few characters have more, you know, and some have been just getting them as it's progressed along. So, you know, it's kind of similar, I guess, to the Mortal Kombat mechanic, but not quite. It's just the fact that you just have different types of special moves, and some of them seem to have somewhat of the same property, but there's just something just a little bit different about them for each character. There also is a dedicated throw button, and then also there is a super move button. So everything basically is just a button. There's no motion inputs at all. Everything is basically connected to a button, and basically that is kind of what I guess is giving you this accessibility that you've never had before. If you are just kind of getting into fighting games, normally you have to learn basically what you call these motions, to do fireballs. And so with this, you don't have to worry about that. It's not an extra task that you have to learn. And so, we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit more also. But I just kind of want to just kind of move on for the sake of time. Now let's talk about the meters in the game. Basically, one of them is designated to a super move, which they're calling overdrive. I kind of mentioned it earlier. Now the other meter is basically Rising Thunder's mechanic, which is known as kinetic. There are two types of kinetic. One is advance, and then the other one is deflect. Okay, so with advance, it allows you to cancel normals and special moves similar to Street Fighter 4's focus attack, but it's a little bit different. All you have to do is just dash. So basically, forward cancels your move, and also if you just press the jump button, the jump will cancel. Will also do the advance mechanic. Okay. So it's a lot more different from Street Fighter 4. I mean, with Street Fighter 4, there was a lot more involved in doing the focus and attack. And I can tell you from having to do it, it wasn't really the most easiest, and it took a lot of practice. And honestly, it kind of took me out of Street Fighter 4 because, trying to move from the intermediate into the advanced, it just was too much of an execution barrier for me. And a lot of times it didn't really work for every single character of the cast. To me, it just, in my opinion. So kind of having it this way definitely kind of limits the time that you'll be spending in the training room. But I definitely have to say that you will be spending some time in the training room. Despite having the experience from other fighting games, it definitely still took me some time. I'm not the most, I'm kind of challenged when it comes to execution, I guess. And so it definitely does take me a little while longer to kind of get the muscle memory for each character. So, that's just something I want to point out, that, yeah, despite it being a lot easier, it will kind of take some time to learn. So the next mechanic that I want to get into is the deflect mechanic, okay? And that is kind of more of a defensive tool. It looks like it's kind of like a combo breaker. Anytime I would catch somebody in a combo, somebody could just break out the combo just easily. And usually I would see people do it right before I kind of landed my special move. I don't really know exactly how this mechanic works, unfortunately. I didn't really see too much information on how to basically make this work. Even with the advance, I kind of just knew because somebody else was talking about it. So I don't really know, how they're going about, giving out for information. I don't know if they are, in fact, just wanting people to just, give out information word of mouth, because, that's kind of how things were back in the day. During the Street Fighter 2 days, everything was pretty much word of mouth. And so maybe they're just trying to do that because, of course, this is just the alpha. And, they just want to, I guess, they're just testing the waters, kind of to see, how people react when playing the game. Okay, so I just want to talk about the characters, give a few character breakdowns. Probably won't have as much information for most, for some as I have for other characters, because I haven't really played all of them. I kind of just stuck to one. But the first one I'm going to talk about is Shell. And basically, she's a Shoto character. And of course, more of a Ryu and Ken variety. She has a fireball, she has a dragon punch. Her dragon punch can actually put you into a juggle state. And that is something else that I just forgot to mention, was that, part of the gameplay visual, you will see that, there is something called juggle on the screen. And basically, now that you've put somebody into a juggle state, where before, that kind of never happened. They never really tell you if your character went into a juggle state. That's something that you actually had to figure out. And the other thing that they also show you is the number of hits that you can do while the person is in juggle. Now, I guess what seems to be her strongest move is a windmill kick. Sort of like, I guess like, Ryu's, or Ken's Tatsumasu Pukin kick. Sort of the same thing, except, it's just a little bit different. Doesn't look the same. But it puts your character also into a juggle state. So just another move basically that she can kind of use in tandem with the Dragon Punch as well. Now, if I'm correct, one of the strong specials, she did have a variance with it. but I'm not quite sure exactly what the other variant did. But I just wanted to kind of mention it, that yes, she does have some extra variant. So I now kind of want to get into the character that I've been playing the most, and that's Dauntless. And the other thing I forgot to mention also is that, you know, with each character, there's kind of I guess a difficulty setting for each character. He is one of the easier characters, and I guess Shell is one of the easier characters. I normally tend to go to characters that don't have, you know, a very big execution, but, you know, they have a lot of offensive, and he seemed to be a pretty offensive character, so I stuck with him. So he seems more like a boxer character, kind of like a cross between Dudley and Balrog. Seemed to work really well with the advance, but when I started to play another Dauntless who was using the deflect, he was just as good, even if not better, at using the deflect, you know, kinetic. You could really, you know, appreciate the fact that, you know, you can actually have a character who has a different style, you know, a different way of playing, you know, a different variation and stuff that he could use in order to gain the upper hand. So that was pretty cool. You know, other things that I did like about his character, you know, with his normals, especially his crouch and medium, you know, it was pretty good range. He also has some variations with his heavy and his medium special moves that you can change out if you like to. I changed like the heavy one. I had one that was a lot more quicker variation than the other one, and both of them were able to put the character into a juggle state. I just felt like one of them was a lot faster. Ultimately, I feel like Dauntless is a character that's going to take some work to really do damage. It just seemed like he just, you know, had to do a lot, you know, to kind of take down, you know, the character's energy. So just something I just wanted to point out, you know, about his character. Okay, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and get into the next character, which is Talon. Now, Talon is basically a grappler type. I seen that he had like a similar move to Hugo with the hand clapping. It seems like he can be played pretty aggressive, especially after the knockdown and when you're going for your mix-ups and stuff like that. He has a good armor move that will put you in the juggle state. It's basically a command normal, so, you know, that's pretty amazing, you know. And he seems to be like one of the stronger characters in the game to me. It's kind of hard to say right now. But for sure, you know, I don't even see him really using much of the kinetic. Most of the time, most times people just stick to using that normal that has the armor behind it. So, you know, he seems like a pretty, you know, tough character. It might take some time to really learn his matchup, especially you know, at intermediate and advanced levels. So the next character that I want to talk about is Crow. He seems to be one of the more unique characters. He does have a move that kind of reminds me of the recent Cinder for Killer Instinct, where he kind of throws this, you know, thing in the air and it lands. And the special that he does, it kind of allows you to control the direction that you throw it in. And I think it's a really good mixer tool, especially, you know, when you knock somebody down. And, you know, it can do more damage if you hold the button. And most times with this game, you know, most of your specials, you can hold them and it kind of powers it up in some sort of way. But the longer that you hold his move, it can do more hits. Also, he has another special move that basically can turn him invincible. Okay, so, you know, I talked about earlier, you know, one of the, you know, that they wanted to make this strictly online, and one of the reasons that they want to make this strictly online is because of Crow. Basically, his move, you know, turns him invisible, but you can see the character, and of course your opponent cannot see the character at all. So, you know, that's kind of one of the important things of having it online, so that, you know, things that you see is not what your opponent can see. And I really kind of think that's a great idea, you know, as far as having that type of element to it. All right, now the next character in the game is Edge. Probably a character that's probably going to take a little bit more time for people to learn. He has a special that increases the power of another special when you hit with it. So basically it goes like 3 levels, and then of course when you hit the third level, basically you can use another special move, which is sort of like a Dragon Punch, and it will give you multiple times to hit, and it will also cause like a wall bounce as well. So I thought that was pretty interesting for, you know, a moveset. He also has a move that's kind of similar like Guise, you know, where you can run up and attack low or high, and I thought that was, you know, a pretty, you know, good move to give him, definitely. Now at the time of this, you know, he had just received a new variation. I hadn't really tried it out that much. But yeah, you know, as you can see that they're still kind of developing things for each of these characters, you know, so that's really good to know. Now the final character that's available for this is Vlad. He's probably the most unorthodox character in this game. He has a very good zoning special, has a setup for combos, that go from low to overhead, very good anti-air, definitely going to be a character that you probably hate. I definitely don't like this character that much. He can kind of get on your nerve with the way that he moves. And on top of that, they've given him the ability to to float. The floating ability, kind of like a rocket in his back, and it allows him to kind of get over the character, so he can kind of set up really good cross-ups, man. And it really kind of gets irritating playing with him. But hopefully, I can kind of learn this matchup and fight him a little bit better. But he's definitely one of the characters that you're gonna love to hate. All right, so let's talk about the online play, because I know a lot of you want to know about the experience for online and how if it's good or not. Basically, right now there's only one mode for online, and that's ranked matches. And it seems like ranking is used kind of to determine the player's skill level. And not only that, but it's kind of used as a matchmaking thing as well. Right now, it looks like there's tier levels, and I think there are maybe 4 tier levels. And then, of course, with each tier, there's 3 levels that you get for each tier. It starts off with like carbon, and then it moves its way to bronze, silver, and I believe maybe gold or diamond. I'm not quite sure about that. I have, run into some diamond tier players. Don't quite know, how the match system is supposed to work. But you do run into a few people who are a little bit higher than you as far as ranking goes every once in a while. Can, of course, go down a level if you lose. But I think that kind of depends on, which rank you fight against. Now the matches are set up for best 2 out of 3. And I thought that was a great idea, given that, in most, online matches that you only get to play the player one time unless you do like a player match. So it's good to have, the 2 out of 3 so that, you get your salty run backs, and I've never really experienced that with a ranked match online before. So I don't know if other fighting games have this, but I definitely think that it's a great addition, to having, a ranked match online, definitely. Now, as far as my experience online, I think, it's a fairly good experience. Here and there I had a few lag spikes. I don't know, if that was due to the computer specs, for certain people's computers, or, what it is caused those lag spikes. But they were very few and in between. And for the most part, the online itself, the inputs are feeling great. Of course, this is rollback, so I know for sure that, this is, pretty good net code. Every once in a while, I felt like my input didn't register very well, but for the most part, I'm able to do my combos the way I want them to, and, my movement is fine. So definitely, pretty good net code. And on top of that, one of the biggest things that I saw, which was very interesting, was that how much information was available. There was some very detailed information to the right of the screen, and it basically gave you like your ping, your frames per second information. All that was available on the right end of the screen, so you kind of saw real time, what you were getting as far as online matches went, as far as your ping and everything. So I thought that was a very good addition, and it's going to be very helpful when you actually do play when the actual official title comes out. Well, that's kind of it for the first look for Rising Thunder. Definitely think that the game is coming along great, and one thing, of course, that I wish I had did was start from the beginner level. I started kind of at the intermediate, so I didn't quite get to see what they had for the beginner level. One of my, I guess, thought was like really important was basically having something in the game that will kind of teach you certain mechanics, especially, as far as mix-ups and stuff like that. And I don't quite know if they did do that or not, but I hope that they did. If they didn't, I definitely hope that when they had the final product, that they do add it to the final product, because I definitely think that's important for anybody who is new to the game, because that's basically the best experience that you're going to have, kind of learning how to do all the mix-up stuff and learning how to do the reads and stuff like that. And of course, the more advanced stuff as far as spacing goes and stuff like that. There's a lot of important things about fighting games. There's definitely been this ongoing debate about, making things a lot easier. And I guess for the first time, we're really going to see if this makes a difference. There's definitely, I've heard like a couple people who've already quit the game, because they feel like they just can't compete, I guess, online with other people. Because I think, if you basically spend time with this, that you'll basically get a chance, to enjoy the fighting games. Like anything else, things take time to get better at. And I kind of understand that there's this human versus element. Right now, there is no, AI available so that you can fight with a computer and get better. So, so I kind of understand that people are probably a little bit frustrated at the moment with, having to take these losses and stuff. But, hopefully, like I said, when the final version comes along, they're going to add a lot more to it, to get people more involved and make it a lot more accessible so that people are basically competing and enjoying the game like they would any other normal game that comes out. So I'll definitely return to this with an update once they go into their beta version, and see how, you can see how far they've come along with the game. If you're interested in playing the game, I've added a link below in the description box. So you can check that out, man, and get online and start playing.